Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dr. Gail, and this is Kevin Briggs. And Kevin is here. He has written a book, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes. As everybody's coming in, I'm going to say hello to some of these people that have come in here. And hey, Teresa. Hey, Susie 007. Hey, Chris MK. Hey, Dream Journey 1. Hey, Earth Mama. Hey, Rainbows and Moonbeams. Hey, Kathleen. Hey, Tina. Hey, everybody, thanks for coming in. And I'm so excited to have Kevin here. What we're going to be talking about is his book that he's written. And we're first going to find out about him. So, Kevin, you ready for your questions? Like, first off, you haven't spoken yet, so nobody's going to say, where's he from? But your first words out of your mouth is going to be, where's he from? So go ahead, tell us where you're from and how your journey to getting to where you are now.
Okay, well, thank you for inviting me, Gail, on your show, because without people like you, I can't get my message out. And yeah, I may have a strange accent to some people. I was born in the UK. I worked there for many years. I worked as a technician for many years, and then I worked as a police officer in the West Yorkshire Police for many years. And I retired as a police officer and moved to Florida. And I've been in Florida now, I think about just 20 years, 21 years. So that's a quick account of 60 years of life, as it was. 68 now I am. So, and yeah, a couple of 3-4 years ago, I was asked to write a book about my contact with my ET star family, which I've had from the age of 8.
Okay. And I'm going to show his book. His book is Spiritual Consciousness.
That's correct.
There you go. And this is his book, and you can get it on Amazon. And anyway, I've got this book and I've written, and I'm going to have some questions from it. But first off, I do want to ask, because I know everybody's interested. Hey, T-Barb. Hey, In-Car. Hey, Vivian. Okay, so what brought you to Florida? I mean, everybody's going to wonder why you ended up in Florida from the UK.
Yeah, well, it was my wife. She wanted to move to America many years ago. Excuse me. And I said that obviously when I retire from the police force, I'll be happy to go anywhere you want to go. And I got to the point of retiring and said, where do you want to go? And she said, want to go to America. So we looked at different places. My wife had continued to be working as a technician at the university, and then went on to head one of the departments. And so she said she wanted to come to America. So we looked at San Francisco and that area, California for the weather, but it's too expensive there. So we settled on Florida, and we went through the immigration system. And it was a big decision, but a great decision. We've had 20 great years here in Florida, and we still love it to this day.
Good. Yeah, well, that was very short and sweet, and everybody's probably have 1,000 questions about it. But we're going to move on to the more important stuff, and that's about your book. And well, Kevin, you started at such an early age having experiences, and you can go ahead and start a little bit on that. And I'm going to probably be interrupting and asking you some questions about it, because I just found it fascinating. And of course, I'll tell about the most fascinating part as you start.
Okay. Well, my journey started when I was 3 years old. My mother had engaged a photographer to come and take some photos for the family album. And when the photographer arrived, he lifted me up onto the oak dining room table for a better position for the photographs. And from the elevated position, I looked around the room and I realized that my conscious energy was in a physical body again. And I was actually looking out from the physical. So that was my first encounter of this particular life. My second encounter, as I've already mentioned, I was 8 years old, and I was taking a bath at home. There was a change in the frequency, which I could feel in the bathroom. I looked to my right, and 2 beings appeared. They materialized there. There was one male, one female, human in appearance, both very attractive, both with long blonde shoulder-length hair, both with deep blue eyes, and they were wearing a tight-fitting blue jumpsuit type garment. They were speaking telepathically to one another, which I could understand. And I was terrified by this, as you can understand as an 8-year-old. And I've come to know them over the years now. The male, his name is Orton, and the female is Dee. And Dee asked Ort a question and said, "Is this the boy?" And then Ort said, "Yes, this is a boy." And then she said, "Are you sure this is a boy?" And he said, "Yes, this is a boy." Excuse me. And she said, "But look at him. He's small. He's uneducated, and he's frightened by our presence." And she was correct. I was terrified. And Ort replied, "Yes, this is a boy. I will guide him. I will teach him." There was some other conversation, and then they left. I was so frightened I didn't get out of the bath. The water went cold. I was shivering. My mother came into the bathroom to see why I was still in the bath. I told her about the two beings, and she said it was just my imagination. Well, it wasn't. I've come to know them over the years. I'm still in contact with them to this day, and I'm 68 now, so that's 60 years of contact with them. And they are guides and teachers. They are Arcturians, and they are from Andromeda, they tell me. And they tell me that I'm part of their extended family. The only difference being I'm in the third dimension, and they live in the fifth dimension. And the only difference between the dimensions are the vibrational frequencies that they exist at. So that was the introduction to them when I was 8.
Well, did you know at that time, did they give you that information that they were Arcturians, or was that later?
Oh, that was later. I didn't know the names. They didn't give me the names at that time. I didn't know they were Arcturian, and that information came later. Yeah.
And I think that's fascinating because you were saying that they were just wearing blue uniforms, and they were actually white with blonde hair and blue eyes.
Yes.
Because that's of like a fourth Arcturian type that I've heard of, because I've met the tall blues, the short blues, and the short greens, and these were actually white with blonde hair and blue eyes and a blue uniform. So
yeah.
I find that fascinating. That's another species of Arcturus that I haven't met them yet, or I don't know that I've met them yet.
Okay, well, I've heard of the others. I haven't met the other Arcturians, but I have met other species, and perhaps I can go into that a bit later on.
Okay, all right. Well, you can continue on from there. From 8 years old.
Okay, so 8 years old, 9 years old was my next encounter. I'd had some friends round for. We've been playing in the afternoon. It was Sunday, and it was time for them to go home for their evening meal, their dinner, and I showed them out the back door. And as I turned around, I felt a frequency in the living room. And I went to the area where the frequency was the strongest, and I looked behind the curtains, the drapes, and there was an orb there. It was a orange, 4 to 6 inches in cross, orangey yellow in color, slightly vibrating. There was no communication at that time, and I wasn't sure what it was. I know now it was Ort's pure conscious energy traveling as an orb. And I went to bed that night hoping it would be gone in the morning. I woke up in the morning and I could feel straight away it was still there. So I went downstairs, looked behind the curtain, and it was there. And it was there for a whole week. It didn't disappear until Friday. I came home from school. I opened the back door, and it had gone. No energy there. I now know that was Ort's pure conscious energy. He was traveling outside of his physical body. But what happened with that, I suspect that he activated my DNA. From that point on, I was able to travel outside of my physical body at will. And as a child, I would only travel a short distance, probably 70 miles. At the weekend, I'd relax, open my mind, and travel over to my grandparents' house, who lived in Liverpool at the time. I would enter through the ceiling and then go into their dressing room, which was off the master bedroom upstairs. I would sit there, look down through the opaque floor, see my grandparents, use my grandmother in the kitchen cooking on a Sunday, and my grandfather watching TV or reading the newspaper. And I would do this over a period of time. And I thought it was normal at that time. And I often wondered when I was doing that, what would my grandparents see if they came upstairs? And I now know the answer of that. They would have seen my pure conscious energy. They would have seen the orange yellow orb, 4 to 6 inches in diameter, slightly vibrating. So, but obviously they didn't come up, so they didn't see me. But what happened, I think, really, they activated the DNA, so I could travel outside of the body And I used to think that was normal for everybody, but I realize it's not.
Now, when the orb was behind the curtains and you knew it was there, it wasn't telepathically communicating with you at that time? You weren't?
No, there was no communication at all with the orb when I was 9 years old. And I was surprised, really, because I didn't know what it was. That was obviously the early stages of my communication. I was just thinking, Gail, I might pull the blind on. The sun's coming. It's setting at the moment at the back, and it's
you got stripes across your face.
Let me just move it a second. Just hold on.
I've had that happen before too, and it is hard to.
Well, it's a bit better, yeah. it comes down at this time of day, and
it's the morning when I have problems. Early morning when I have problems, and
comes in through the window. Yeah, so no communication at 9, and but clearly I suspect they activated the DNA that allowed me to travel outside of the physical.
Okay, all right, everyone. I'm going to be still asking some questions. I got questions about Kevin's book, and then y'all can start putting in questions in a few minutes, and we'll take your questions. So, but it's my turn first to ask questions. So, well, first off, go ahead with your journey from 9 years old until, because our university wants.
Yeah, the next part of my education, as it were, I was 14 years old, and I had a paper round, and every time I went out the house to go and collect my papers, a UFO would appear above the house. And then as I was walking towards the paper store, a second UFO would come, and the two would follow me around the paper round. When I'd finished the paper round, one would usually go back in the direction that it came from, and the other one would go straight up into space. And while I noticed them and they were there, I always felt a presence behind the wall, behind the hedge or whatever. And on one day, I plucked up courage and I said, I know you're there. Can you come out and show yourself? And two small grey beings came out and showed themselves. I asked them, I wasn't frightened. I said, what do you want? And they said, there's a group of people that would like to meet with me. Would I go with them? And I said, well, I've got my paper round to finish. Then I've got to go to school this morning. I said, well, you can finish your paper round and we'll have you back in time so you can go to school. So I finished the paper round. I agreed to go with them, and I was taken to a large craft. I suspect it was a mother craft because of the size of the hangar. It was huge, absolutely huge. And it was full of all these different crafts that we see around our planet flying around. And I was taken from the craft and escorted down to an amphitheater. Went into the amphitheater, and it was full of people, all different species, sat. And at the front of the amphitheater was a table on a stage. And on that table, or around that table, were 8 beings. The first 2 beings were Orton D, the 2 that I'd met when I was 8. And then there was a blue bird type being. Her name was Anna. She was very empathic. And then Zark, he was a small grey. I've come to know him as he's an engineer, mathematician who designs propulsion systems. He has a family, he has 3 offsprings, and he calls them offsprings, not children. And then Ra, he was the leader of the group, and he was Anunnaki, and he was very old. And then Tag, he was a tall grey, and he told me that he was responsible for the security, not only of this Council of 8, but for this quadrant of the galaxy. And then Chica, I was a bit perturbed when I saw him because he was like a large grasshopper. He was a mantis being with his big eyes and these long arms. So I was a bit perturbed by that. And then the last one was Orla. She was a tall white. I think she told me she's an astrobiologist. And I thought then I was just there as a human specimen to be paraded in front of all these different beings. I realized that wasn't the case now. It was like a meeting we would have with our parliaments, our governments, our Congress, where all the delegates sit in the amphitheater and the main delegates are on the front, on the stage, as it were. And I've come to know that and learn that. But at the time, anyway, we finished with the introductions and they said they'd take me back home. They took me back home, dropped me off near my house, and I was about 20, 25 minutes later than I normally would be from getting home from my paper round. So, and then I had a quick breakfast and got to school on time. So that was the next encounter of this journey with them. And I'm still in contact with all 8 to this day. And again, that was 14 and I'm now 68. So quite a few years ago now.
Do you know the purpose of that meeting?
Oh, that's a good question. I think it was part of my education to show that we are not alone within the galaxies. There are many species. I believe our galactic history has been denied us. And it's really just introducing me. And now I'll say they've educated me in consciousness, how it can be used for many modalities of communication, healing, education, creation, co-creation. And I believe they've done that on purpose. So I'm able to communicate with them at their levels. There are many modalities of contact they use, and they've educated me in all of them. So
well, I think the funniest part is that you first called it a grasshopper, because my first praying mantis that I met, I said the same thing. I met this grasshopper. A friend of mine corrected me. She said, "No, that's a praying mantis." I was going, "It looked like a grasshopper. It looked like a giant grasshopper."
Well, we do have praying mantis here in Florida, the small ones. And when I see them on my gateposts and things, and I look at them, they're exactly what Chica looked like, only 6 foot tall, obviously much bigger.
Well, you know, my first meeting with one of them, they took me into a cave where their whole family and everything was.
Okay.
And he was able to go from a tiny grasshopper to 6 feet tall.
Was he really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well,
yeah.
I was amazed.
Yeah, perhaps they're able to shape shift. I don't know. I haven't come across that, but fascinating really to be introduced to them, and fascinating that they Orton D, or particularly their Ort, has educated me throughout my life in relation, as I said, in relation to all these modalities of contact that they use. So now they've got someone here, and there's many others like me, I'm sure. I've met many people now who each have been taught by the ETs certain areas, and I always equate it to I've got a small piece of the jigsaw. They've taught me about consciousness and how it relates to life and the universe, and all the other people I've got friends now I've met that expert healers. They're psychic healers. They're just amazing, but they've been taught in those modalities specifically. And then if you get all those pieces together, then we get the full picture of our galactic history, as I say, that's been denied us and who we really are.
Yeah. So, well, you hit on one thing, because I was going to ask you, I was going to say, what was Orton D? So you answered that question for me. That was one of my other questions. But again, your journey then keeps on going on and on and on through the book. And everybody, it's an easy read on this book. And I'm going to show it one more time. And this is the book that he wrote that's talking about his journey. And it goes into a lot more detail, which you are a lot better at the details. My book that I'm writing, I'm having to go back now to put details in. I come from a medical background. I'm a nurse. I'm a chiropractor, and we talk in code, and we talk in short sentences, and so that's kind of how my book started, was like that. So just
I learned quite a bit. I know when I wrote it, my wife read it initially, and she said, I think her actual words were, "It was pathetic, Kevin." so I said, "What's wrong with it?" She said, "It's not descriptive enough. You need more adjectives in there." So I rewrote it and improved on it. And I think I did it a couple of times, 2 or 3 times. And then she said, "That's a lot better." Yes. So I had some assistance with my wife helping me with that. So my next contact is quite an interesting one. If we've got time, I was 17, 18 years old, and I lived in an apartment. And I used to, when I got to that age, nobody talked about traveling outside of the physical body. And to me, it was just normal. I think, I'll go around and see my friend Gary. I'll just nip over there first to make sure he's home before I walk the 10, 15 minutes round to his house. So I'd just nip over, leave my body. I'd see him in his house, and then I'd come back, then I'd walk round to his home. And I would, if I was going to work, I'd go and see how long the line was at the bus stop. And I would choose which bus stop to go to with the smaller line before I set off. Just simple things, really. And then travel outside my body on the bus coming home from work on a sunny day because it was nice to do that. Normal to me. And so I started asking family and friends. I said, in the third party, I said, I have a friend that travels outside of his body, he tells me, and he's able to communicate with other people. And do you know anybody else that does this? No, nobody knew. Nobody knew anything about it. And we didn't have the internet then. So one evening I went to bed and I asked Ort if he would. So I said to him, I know there's more information here. I need to learn more. Can you come and show me? I went to bed. I fell asleep. He took hold of my hand. I left my body. And I looked back. I was just like, I could see myself asleep. We went out through the window, just around the subdivision, and back again, back into the window. And I looked down. I could see my body asleep. And I went back into my body. I woke up the following day thinking that was cool, but I wasn't certain whether it was a dream or whether it was real. And so I thought I'll do the same the second night. So the second night I went to bed, I relaxed, I opened my mind. I asked Ort if he would come and show me more. He came, he took hold of my hand, and I looked down, I could see my body asleep. We went out through the window. We went down this time into Leeds city centre. I saw the university, the hospital, the town hall, the buildings that I recognised. And then we flew back into the window. I was still asleep, and I went back into my body. I still wasn't convinced. So I thought I'll do this a third night. And I was a bit concerned in case I was sleepwalking because I was 3 stories up and it was pavement concrete below. So again, the same procedure. I relaxed. I opened my mind. I asked Ort to come and show me some more. He came. He took hold of my hand. I left my body. I looked back. I could see myself asleep. And I said to him, before we go, can we go out through the roof this time? Because I'm not certain.
I wanted to ask you that question. That was exactly why weren't you wanting to go out the window? Why did you go out the roof?
Because the window was 3 stories up, and if I was sleepwalking, I woke up maybe while I was sleepwalking. I didn't really know what was going on at the time. I was used to traveling on my own outside of my body, but not with someone else. So I thought, well, if we go out through the roof, I'm not going to fall down 3 stories really, because we're doing something different. It was a safety measure for me, I think. So, and he agreed. So yes, we'll go out through the roof. And then all subsequent journeys, we travelled out through the roof. So it was just because I wasn't certain at the time what was happening really. But and I travelled with him many times doing that.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Next journey.
Okay. Well, the next journey would be a continuation of that one. He came to me one night and said, Kevin, I'm going to take you somewhere special this evening. Are you okay to come with me? And I said, yes, I'll go anywhere you want to go. So again, the same procedure. He took hold of my hand. We left. I looked down. I could see my body asleep. We went out through the roof. On this occasion, we just kept going up and up and up and up. And I could see the earth getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And then we went into a higher dimension. And as we went into that dimension, there was a line of 30 people all waiting to greet me. And at the head of the line was my deceased father. And he was stood up. He was 6 feet tall. I'd never seen him standing because he was in a wheelchair from when I was born. So he greeted me. The feeling of love that emanated from this group was just tremendous. And he had a big beaming smile on his face. And he welcomed me. And he said that he was going to introduce me to my family, going back over 300 years, 30 generations. So we started off down the line. He introduced me. I saw the physical that they'd had in the last incarnation. We had some conversation about what they would been doing. And what was interesting, when we got to the 15th or 16th, the latter 15 didn't show a physical. They were a pure conscious energy orb. This, 4 to 6 inches round, slightly vibrating. But they were still able to communicate telepathically with me and show me their last incarnation and give me information. So I went down the line and introduced to the other 15. Now, I got so confident. I used to go on a regular basis with Ort to meet these family members. And then I got so confident and good that I didn't need Ort. I would go on my own. And I met them over a 2-year period like this on a regular basis. And I say that feeling of love when you traveled and you met with them was just tremendous. but I was finding it more difficult to get back into the physical body. So I decided one day at work I could not just not go back after visiting them for over a 2-year period. I decided I would go back this evening or that evening and let them know I won't be coming again. So I did. I travelled up there that day, that evening, and again, that feeling of love and warmth from them just emanating from them. And I explained the reasons why I wasn't going to come back. They tried to persuade me to stay, but I said that no, I'm enjoying my physical life. I've got things I want to do. And when my physical dies, I know you're still here, so I'll come back and we'll meet again. So I went back into my body. I've never been to see them since, but I know that they're there. Because of all the 2-year contact I had with them. So
you don't ever go outside your body now?
Oh, I do now, yes, but I don't go and visit my deceased family members, no, because there was too much of a draw for them to stay with them. And I think that was the difficulty that it caused me in getting back into the physical. No, when I leave my body, I can get back as easy as I want to. And I still travel out of body to this day. And I'll travel out of body up to the astral plane and meet Orton D on the astral plane. And I have no difficulty in getting back into the physical there because I'm not being drawn by 30 people trying to get me to stay with them. So I think that was the reason.
Yeah, astral plane is amazing. I've gone out there many times, and I used to go up there a lot with my dog Moon, who's a white German Shepherd.
Right.
She and I used to travel up there and hang out.
It's amazing, when you do these things that I know I've traveled on there many times, and I've communicated with Orton D many times. And on one occasion, they came alongside me in a conscious craft. And I knew it was conscious because they invited me on the craft. And as I went through the skin, I could feel it was conscious. And when I entered the craft, there were Orton D there, but they were just there as the pure conscious energy orbs, this round orange vibrating frequency, as it were, consciousness itself. And I said to them, let me see if I understand this correctly. I said, this is really just another part of my education. I said, let me see if I understand this correctly. We've got 3 different beings here, 2 from one dimension, 1 from another dimension, traveling out of body on the astral plane as pure conscious energy in a craft of consciousness that you've created. They said, yes, that's correct, Kevin. I said, well, I see you 2 as pure conscious energy orbs. How do you see me? They said, Kevin, we see you exactly the same. So clearly they educated me to that level where we can travel outside. They have physicals as well. They can travel outside of the physical. And really it's a demonstration that consciousness itself can be used to create. And on this occasion, they were creating a conscious craft. So again, just another one of the many lessons that I've been given. And they never used to sit me down in a classroom and teach me things. They would give me experiences, and those experiences were the education.
Right. A lot of mine were like that too. They would, like when I learned how to fly a spaceship, I wasn't told that that's what was going to happen. They just put me up there and go, put your hands up, integrate with the spaceship, that kind of thing. So mine was always like, put me to the fire and this is what you're going to do. I never got that. But, but then my memory goes back to when they were teaching me even before, like taking me up at 2, or even as an infant started teaching me then. I just didn't start remembering it until much later.
Oh, okay. So, yeah. I've had constant memory throughout my life, and I wouldn't really have spoken out about it, Gail, until about 5 years ago. It was just part of me. It's part of who I am. I told my wife when I met her, and then my brother knew because I used to talk about it as a child and later on. But I didn't really speak about it. I didn't need to really because they were just part of my extended family. That
your world. Well, here's another fascinating thing: is your wife, who's gone through this whole thing with you, and it seems to me that she doesn't claim that she has her gifts, but obviously she does when she knew that your uncle was around. So does she not admit to having certain gifts or experiences, or how's that working?
Okay, well, she's having the experiences because she has the contact herself now. I was actually speaking one morning. I got up in the morning. I thought, just before I get dressed, I'll see if I can contact the Council of Eight. So I relaxed up my mind, put the information out there, and I wasn't able to connect with them. But I was connected with a small craft that was flying by. And it was the craft was being flown by a pilot. I know his name is Tia. He was a small grey, and he was transporting small greys from A to B. And I said, "What are you doing here?" And he said, "Well, we were on this flight path, and it took us near your home, so we've deviated from the flight path to come and see where you live." I said, "Oh, okay, that's fine, great, yeah." So we had a bit more conversation, excuse me, and then he said, "Right, we'll have to go because, as I said, I'm off my designated flight path, so nothing unusual for me." And then they left. I got dressed. I went out to meet my wife on the pool area, and she was having a cup of tea. I took my coffee out there, and she said, "Kevin, you missed the most beautiful rainbow this morning." I said, "Oh, did you get a photograph?" She said, "Yes, I did." And then she said, "What do you think will happen next?" I said, "I don't know." She said, "A craft appeared under the rainbow." I said, "Did you get a photograph of the craft?" She said, "Yes, I did." So I looked at the photograph, and what was interesting on the photograph, it was exactly the same time as it was on the clock in the bedroom. So it was really confirmation for me with the telepathic communication, and confirmation for Sandy because they allowed her to see a craft. And,
Right.
And I know Zach, he moves some of my wife's personal items around the home. She'll put something down, he'll pick it up and move it. She'll draw the blinds to stop the sun coming in at this time of night, and then she'll turn around and he'll open them. And I asked him why he did that, and he said that he thought it was funny. He liked teasing her, but the serious side was to let her know that we are here, we are amongst you. So my wife's happy with that.
Yeah, my uncle and father, when they come, they're characters together, and they play jokes on me like that too when they come together.
Right, okay. Yeah, on one occasion, they lined all my wife's shoes up in the walk-in closet along the baseboard there. And I knew it was that because that's the type of thing he does. So I asked him, was it him? And he said, yes. I said, why did he do it? And those are the reasons that he gave, because he likes teasing it. But there was a serious side to it to let her know they were here. But I then asked him, well, did you move them physically? Did you pick them up and move them? He said, no, I use the atoms. I moved the atoms in space-time dimension. Well, our science doesn't understand that yet. But really, that was probably just another small lesson in relation to reality. And what is actually reality? Do we really know it?
Yeah, and that was another question I had, was about that. In the very end of the book, you're explaining how they gave you about the atoms being part of, and you're supposed to put it in the book for the scientists to find. And you were asking, how are they supposed to find it? But I guess somehow or another, they're going to find your book.
Yes, I've been given download. I get downloads. I got one download. I was sat by my pool again, just relaxing, and I got a download of the quantum unified field theory, which I knew nothing about, Gail, nothing about. So when they gave me all this information, I said, look, you've just given me all this information, and I know nothing about it. Can you show me a craft to confirm that it's come from you and it's not my own imagination? A craft appeared immediately outside of my pool cage. I went in to get my wife, Sandy, and I said, come on, quickly, there's a craft appeared. And she came out, the craft was there. We went outside the pool cage, and another craft appeared, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7. 7 in total appeared, flew silently over our heads, changed direction about 80 degrees, and then flew off and disappeared sequentially as they had appeared. So that was confirmation for me that the quantum unified field theory, and there was some extra information in there from our scientists and things, which I think I put in the book. And I had another download of the theory of everything. And again, I know nothing about it. I was just sat by my pool, and they gave me this information instantly in a second. And on that occasion, I said, look, you've given me all this information about the theory of everything. There's some other explanations in there for our scientists. And I said, I really need to know this information has come from you and it's not my own imagination. Can you show me a craft? A craft appeared immediately outside the pool cage, and it flashed 1, 2, 3 times. So that was sufficient communication. So
Right.
I'm
Listen,
confident.
have they told you how the scientists are going to find this information? That
I've
you're
given it
putting.
to a number of scientists now. So
Okay.
in
Okay.
fact, I was contacted by one of our leading scientists the last week, and after that podcast I did, and I've given him. I was also given an equation for calculating the different dimension frequencies, because, as I said earlier, the different dimensions are just frequencies. So, I mean, I don't understand them, but I've given that. And if there's any validity to it, then they're welcome to use it or do what they want with it. But I mean, I mean, it's a way above my. I understand it now because I've obviously learned a little bit about it in relation, and I speak about it sometimes in relation to what they actually said and the information that was given. So, so I can actually talk about it. And when I spoke to that leading scientist, we had a conversation there for 2 hours, and it was quite fascinating, really. He's been working in these areas for 30, 40 years or more, I think. And the information I've been given, he validated it really by confirming that what I'd been given, although in the layman's terms, was the work that he'd been doing for many, many years. So, yeah, quite interesting, really.
Okay. Well, we're going to move on to when you did the contract.
Oh,
That is extremely interesting and extremely important.
which I don't know which one you're referring to, because I've had so many.
When they're coming down here, that contact, the agreement that you wanted them, the government, to sign for them to be safe when they came down on first contact. That whole.
All right. Okay. Yes, they asked me. They needed a mandated protocol to be implemented to receive them.
Protocol. Okay, that's the right word. Protocol.
Mandated protocol. Yeah. So I contacted our United Nations, the office of Nicholas Hedman. He's the chairman of he was there, I don't know if he still is, the chairman of the Outer Space Affairs Committee, and asked if we had a mandated protocol to receive our ET star families. And he replied, or his office replied, and said we didn't have a mandated protocol to receive advanced extraterrestrials should they wish to contact or communicate with the United Nations. So I then wrote back and asked him how would we implement a mandated protocol to receive them. And he said you'd have to get a member state to propose that, then it will be voted upon. So that was that. I'd done what I'd been asked to do, and not got any further with it. And then sometime after that, I was asked to contact them again in relation to, they'd given me a specific date. They wanted to meet with our United Nations. I think it was February the 1st. I can't remember the year now. But I put the information out there on Facebook that this group of ETs wanted to meet with our United Nations in New York, February the 1st, whatever year it was. And I contacted the Nicholas Hedman's office again in Vienna. On that occasion, I didn't receive a reply. I just received an automated response to say they received the email. I also sent an email to Dr. DiPippo in Washington, D.C., to their office there. Now, what they asked me to do, but then 8 days later, a friend of mine, Terry Lovelace, he contacted me. He's a lifelong experiencer. He's a retired law professor. He's a retired assistant attorney, assistant to district attorney for 2 jurisdictions. He's retired now, obviously. He speaks out. He's written a couple of books about his contact with his ETs. And he phoned me up one day and said, Kevin, I've been given exactly the same date and information that you've been given about them wanting to meet with the UN in February the 1st. I said, well, I'd already written to Nicholas Hedman in Vienna, and I'd written to Dr. DiPippo in Washington, D.C. And he said, well, I know Dr. DiPippo. I will send him an email supporting what you're requesting. So he did that, and I've got copies of all the emails. Neither of us received any response on this occasion. So Terry told me he went through the back channels of government that he knows when he worked in government. And in his words, he got the pushback. So clearly they're trying to reach out to our governments. And I'm sure they've done it in the past, but our governments don't seem quite ready yet to take that next leap. I'm sure they will in the future when they're ready to do that. And
they'll do it when they have to do it.
They'll do it when they have to do it, possibly, or or before. So, but now I've written my own. They asked me, they told me what they wanted in this mandated protocol. So I wrote one, including everything that they requested. And then I signed it. My wife witnessed it. And then I got Kathleen Marden, Dr. Melanie Barton, and Denise Stoner. They signed it and ratified it. So we now have our own mandated protocol. And my ETs now tell me that the request of the reveal of their presence globally will come from a request from the citizens of Earth. So we, as I say, we now have a mandated protocol written by 5 citizens of Earth and signed and ratified. So we're good to go now.
Yeah, I think that was good work, and I thought that that protocol was excellent.
All right, have you seen it?
Yeah, you did send me a copy of it. I don't have it right up here, but I mean, I thought it was excellent. So is that out in public where people can go look at it? Is that on your website?
No, if anybody wants a copy of it, just email me and I'll send you a copy. Okay. I do put it out there. I could read it out to you if you've got time.
Yeah, we got a few minutes. Then we need to really go in. I think there's some questions in the chat that wanted to ask questions. So,
okay. Well, I'll leave it then. If anybody wants a copy of the mandated protocol, it's only 2 short paragraphs, and I can email them a copy, and then they can share it with who they want. It's that's the email address. Yeah, if you want a copy of it or you want some more information, just get in touch with me, and I can share that with you. So
Kathleen's saying read it. She wants you to read it.
Oh, okay then. Right, I'll read it then. I have a copy here in front of me. Let me have a read. Let's have a look then. Right, I've titled it Mandated Protocol to Receive Our ET Star Families Ambassadors. Individuals on our planet are currently being engaged by our ET star families. Our governments are aware of this, but at this time are not ready to receive the ambassadors. The ET star families ambassadors are requesting a mandated protocol to be ratified and implemented by the citizens of Earth to receive them. Within the mandated protocol will be provisions for the safety and security of the star families on approach to planet Earth, while in our atmosphere and on the ground at mutually agreed and designated date, time, and location. When implemented, we, the citizens of Earth, can reach out with our own ambassadors for the reveal of our ET star families, with a mutual exchange of cultures, technologies, and pave the way for a new society. A society we desire for our children, for our future generations. A new society we co-create with our ET star families, one that will include them. And then the second part, protocol for peaceful contact with our ET star families. Creation, co-creation, intent for a mandated protocol to receive our ET star families ambassadors. I have been informed by my ET guides that they require a mandated protocol in place to guarantee their safety and security when invited to Earth for meetings, interactions, and cultural exchange. My ET guides also inform me that the reveal of their presence globally will come from a request from the citizens of Earth. We use thought and consciousness, intent to create our reality. I propose, because we, as exo-conscious humans, have an understanding of this, we should lead the way with the intention, creation, co-creation with our ET star families ambassadors. This would be the intention of this proposed mandated protocol being co-created through thought and consciousness. Included in these thoughts would be the protection and security of the craft and their occupants approaching Earth, while flying in our atmosphere at landings, meetings, and predetermined dates, times, and locations. And then the last line, in witness thereof, the undersigned, being authorized by their birthright as born of this earth. I signed it, my wife witnessed it, Kathleen Marden signed it, Dr. Melanie Barton signed it, and Denise Stoner signed it. So it's now ratified, and we have our own mandated protocol, which has been written by citizens of Earth. So we now have what they've requested. So what we really need now is a large group of experiencers to get together who have their own contacts, and we can all make their request for a specified date, time, and place. So, but we need a large group of experiencers to do that. And I'm able to call the craft in as other experiencers are. So that's really the next step. I don't know when it will happen, but we're moving forward rapidly now to this the reveal globally of our ET star families.
Okay. All right. You ready to take some questions?
Oh, yes. I'm always open to questions. Yep.
Okay. All right, Susie, go ahead and put up the first questions. Susie's in the background, everybody. Okay, hypnicity. I'm terrified of frogs and grasshoppers. Could there be a connection here? Everybody,
well, that's a possibility. If you've got a fear, perhaps you've been visited in the evening by some of these beings. I'm sure that if I'd have seen a Chica at the side of my bed as a child, I'd have been terrified. So I don't know. There's so many things that happen within our reality that we can't explain. So it may well be that you've had contact with them, and that's why you fear them. I don't know. It's a possibility.
It is a possibility. Hypnicity also, it could be the planet too, somewhere that you weren't real friendly with them. So, in fact, when Mary was on the last time, she was talking about the big palmetto bugs or the big roaches, how she knew she was scared to death of them. She's not scared of snakes or anything else, but she's scared to death of those. She goes, I know I've had a lifetime with them. So it's a good possibility of hypnicity. Okay. All right. Next. Hey, White Dragon, has Kevin visited any planets in the solar system or elsewhere?
Yes, I've visited a few. On one occasion, I was actually I was asking if they would come down and land in my yard at the back. I've got a couple of 2.5 acres at the back of the property, and I kept asking for them to come down and land. And then one day I had a dream that a craft came down, landed, and a guy came out and asked me if I wanted to go and visit with his family on another planet. So I said yes. So I went with him, traveled to his planet, which was near Alpha Centauri, I think, and it had a binary sun system. There were 2 suns, one with a red dwarf. Anyway, we landed at the front of his house, exited the craft, and I went into the house. It was quite interesting. The house didn't have any doors or windows. They were just open spaces. And it was a 3-story home, I believe. And the staircase went round the wall up to the top. And I went into the living area. Then we walked into the kitchen, and he introduced me to his 2 daughters and a son. And then his wife came down. She walked in and he introduced me to her. And then she said, I was invited outside then into the yard area at the front. There was a small pond where we were going to have something to eat and drink and have a discussion. Bearing in mind that this is a dream. And then his wife said, well, I'll just have to go upstairs. And I'll meet you outside. Anyway, as she walked up the stairs, she didn't walk up the stairs like this. She floated about 6 inches above the stairs. Most unusual. Now, when Orton D materialized in my bathroom, they were 6 inches above the floor. So some similarity there. But then I went to a talk with someone, and he spoke about a woman in 1947 who had exactly the same experience. So even down to the beings floating 6 inches above the ground. Because when we walked out to the picnic area at the outside, I was walking on the footpath, and the 2 females, the male and the guy the pilot, were floating about 6 inches above the ground. So, but then the confirmation that this woman in 1947 had exactly the same experience, I suspect that dream was a reality, and dreams are a modality of contact. So that was one time when I was actually taken, but I was asking for them to come down and land. And that was obviously the answer to me making that request.
Okay. All right. Next question. Hey, in-car question. Any messages from Arcturian family?
Well, yeah, they tell me they're here to assist with our evolution. They say we've reached this level of technology in the past, and then we've destroyed ourselves, destroyed our societies. They don't want that to happen this time. They want to help us evolve to those higher levels of consciousness where we understand consciousness and the connection to the universe and all life within it, so we can evolve as another two galactic species. So they are here to assist. They are concerned about the pollution. They are particularly concerned about the radioactive pollution from Fukushima. And they say that if we can meet and interact, they're prepared to share their technologies, and which will assist in the cleaning of that pollution.
Okay. Well, in card, I pulled out of my Starseed Oracle deck, and the card I pulled out was Lifting the Veil.
All right. Oh.
Isn't that amazing? Well, what we're talking about, and it says questioning everything, anything unaligned must go. So that's what they're talking about, just in general in your life. In car, I think you're questioning everything in your life, and if you are questioning, get rid of it, let it go. Don't hang on to it. We're all changing, so yeah, just go ahead and.
Yeah, I always say just go with the flow. Go whatever you feel you should be doing. Open up to these new realities that are around us that
Right.
we've been denied.
Yeah, I think her veil is being lifted, and so I think she's questioning everything in her life.
Right.
So, okay. All right. Next. Hey, Susie, how high does your vibration have to be connected like you, Kevin?
That's a very good question. I don't know the answer to that. I suspect that my frequency is slightly higher than most. I know our cells and everything do vibrate at certain frequencies. Our heart, all our internal organs, we have this vibrational frequency that extends around our physical body. But I don't know the actual frequencies that they're at. But I suspect because say if Ort came into the room now, in our little office here, I would feel the change in the vibrational frequencies, and I can reach out my hand and feel those changes in the frequencies within the room. So I would say that if Susie wants to do some meditation, if you want to make contact or you need some help with some healing or something, I always, before I go to bed, I'll ask for some healing, and then that will happen while I'm asleep. So yeah, you can communicate in different ways, and even like I say, meditation. Join these different groups. The ET Let's Talk group with Costa McCrease. That's etletstalk.com, and he has CE5s globally with people. I think he's got over 1 million members now who make regular contact with the craft and things. So perhaps Susie could try that and see how she goes on.
Now, for me, I think I'm connecting with at least fifth and on up when I'm connecting with them. I don't know that I've ever met any kind of being in the fourth dimension. I think it's always been 5 and above. What about you, or do you even know?
Well, that's interesting because all the beings that I've in contact with, not all of them, but most of them are fifth dimensional beings, except for Ra, who's the 9th dimensional being, and he's able to move through the dimensions and incarnate at will as and when he wants. And then he does have another being that's just purely spiritual being. Her name is Shiva, and she sits at the right-hand side of Ra. She's 9th dimensional as well, and she oversees with Ra, the Council of 8. I've had contact with her as well, but they did tell me that the 4th dimension was the astral plane itself, and the 4th dimension was between dimensions. And then when we meet there, I travel up to the 4th, and they travel down to the 5th. I don't know if that's correct or not, but that's what they told me.
Okay. Now, for me, I know I astral travel and my light body goes, and I know the difference. When my light body goes out, it's almost like I'm a ghost or a cloud or whatever moving around, and I can see my body. But when my light body goes out, it is a light body, and it takes on the form of whatever I'm going to. Either it's my form, or I can go to another planet and take on their form. So I have 2 different levels that I go, like astral traveling or my light body traveling, and they feel totally different. Is that
right? Okay.
That...
Yeah, I only have the one travel really in relation to just leaving the physical, just as pure conscious energy. But then I can go anywhere I want to go. I can stay here. Sometimes I'll fly over to Paris to see the Eiffel Tower. I'll travel to Russia to see the architecture there because it's fascinating. Just simple things like that, just for entertainment. And then I can travel further. I'm able to create a conscious craft as well as Orton. Didn't show me how to do that, but I worked on that after they told me that. They said to me, I said to them one day, they said to me, why don't you travel further, Kevin? And I said, oh, it's all right with you. You've got a conscious craft to travel in, and you've got your partner, Dee. I said, I'm traveling on my own, and I don't have a conscious craft. They said, well, why don't you create your own craft? I said, well, how would I do that? They said, through thought and consciousness. So I did some experiments with that using thought and consciousness and was able to create my own craft and go and travel as they do. And I remember traveling to a planet using that method. And as I flew around the planet, I didn't go down the cloud base, under the cloud base, but I thought if I did, and the planet was occupied by people inhabited, would they think I was a UFO? Would they think I was an ET? I haven't got the answer to that question yet, but that shows the level of ability that they've taught me in relation to using thought and consciousness.
Right. Okay, we have time for one more question, and then we'll kind of wrap it up. So what's the next question? Hey, old painter, are angelics, celestials, and ETs the same being? Do communicate they at the same time, harmonic frequency, if they are different? Well, I'll answer about that because I was going to say something about that. And usually when I'm seeing the angels, I know they're on the seventh. Usually it's Jesus and angels. I feel like they're on the seventh dimension. But you go ahead and take the rest of that because I meant to say that earlier.
Okay. Well, my understanding will be, that's a very good question, actually. My understanding is that consciousness itself has, as I said earlier, the different levels of frequencies. And the angelics are one of the top levels of frequency, very next to source itself. And then the ETs, depending on their conscious understanding or where they are within those scales, those frequencies, they're at those different dimensions. And as I said earlier, if we see dimensions as just frequencies, then we have a better understanding of that. So, yeah.
Okay. All right, Kevin, I certainly enjoyed it. I'm going to show your book, and this is, y'all can get this on Amazon, and it's Spiritual Consciousness, A Personal Journey by Kevin Briggs. And we have just only touched about his experiences. It just keeps on going on and on and on and on and on. And you do have another book coming out here. How soon is that going to come out?
Yeah, I'm still working on it. I think I've got it all written. I've just got to edit it.
But I know the editing takes longer than the writing, doesn't it?
Well, I'm hoping within the next few months I'll have it finished and ready to go.
Right. Well, I was hoping my book was ready to go like 2 weeks ago, but apparently I've got more, more editing to do, and then I'll start on my next book. But anyway, thanks, Kevin. Thanks, everybody, for joining us today. And thanks, Susie, for the help. And we will see y'all later. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.